Hello everyone, welcome back. Today I wanted to share with you guys with what I think is the best and cheapest way for you guys to practice, manuscript 133. Okay, and that is SCA Rapier. Okay, basically the SCA stands for Society of Creative Enactment. They do just about everything and anything that is medieval related. From heavy armored combat to rapier fighting to archery, to medieval cooking, medieval beer brewing, medieval weaving. They do everything. Okay, so if it was done during medieval times, they do it. So within the SCA, you have SCA Rapier. They use steel blades like this, and it's basically fencing, but in a more historic style. And this is, first of all, I've been doing that for about 16 years, and it's it's a very good way to practice your 133. And the reason is because if you look at 133, it's all about leverage. It's all about, like, if this is my opponent's blade, I'm coming in, I'm going to basically control the other person's blade, come up, thrust through. Okay, so or come to this side, step to this side, thrust. So it's all about controlling the other person's blade and attacking safely. SCA Rapier does that and teaches that very well. Now it's not like an organized school where you go there, you have one instructor, he's running a class. You go there, and basically what you have is a bunch of people that are there to spar, amongst themselves. And there's usually people within the group that have been doing this for a long time, and they'll kind of function as the leaders of that particular practice, and will also take on a teaching role. But you're not just kind of learning from one person; you're all kind of learning from each other, and of course, the more experienced people will have more to teach you. So basically, it's a really good, cheap way to learn. Most practices are free. Occasionally they might charge like a $5 floor fee, if they're renting the place, they might charge $5 or something like that. But a lot of practices are free. So in SCA Rapier, what they do is they use thrusts, they use 6-inch draw slices, and they use 6-inch tip cuts. Okay, so your thrust is basically you coming in, you land the thrust, and it's basically a touch calibration at most practices. So they're not hitting really hard. All you need is a fencing mask, a gorget, a cup, basically a fencing jacket or something that is good, is just as good as a fencing jacket. So it's not a big investment as far as equipment goes. So they're using thrusts with a touch calibration. They're using slices where a slice travels 6 inches, and they're using a tip cut where the tip cut travels about 6 inches. They do not use percussive cuts, so they don't do that. Now you might say, well, how am I supposed to practice 133 if I can't use a cut? Because one of the plates clearly shows a cut, right? You're here, you come in, control, come up, make your cut. Well, here's the thing. This could just as well be a slice. Okay, so there's only one play that really uses a cut, and you could just as well substitute a slice for it. So for me, it's not a, I don't see it as a big deal. Now, if you absolutely have to be using cuts, then by all means check out SCA Cut and Thrust. That's also great. They do have more, some armor requirements with that. You gotta have like your elbows, your knees covered. So there is a slightly higher armor requirement because now we're doing percussive cuts. But the SCA Rapier is a lot more established. You will find more practices at more locations. In most cases, if you live in the United States, you should be able to find an SCA Rapier practice within an hour of where you live. Okay, and if we look at if you look at the 133 and you look at the rapier fighting that they do in the SCA, it's very similar. I mean, they're basically looking to come in, control the blade, push it to the side, and thrust through. So it's a lot of that, getting the other person's weak on your strong, gaining an angle and thrusting through. So if you're familiar with 133, when you go there and you see what they're doing, it's gonna look very familiar to you. Now, in many cases, they're not using bucklers; they might be using daggers. But there will be people that also use bucklers, and you can always tell people that that is your preferred fencing style. And by all means, you don't need to match weapons. So if they want to fight with sword and dagger, you can always use the sword and buckler, because historically people didn't always match weapons. I mean, that's a very insisting that the weapons be always matched is actually very unhistoric. Okay, historically people brought to the fight whatever they happen to bring. Okay, now how about SCA cut and thrust? I mentioned that briefly. If you are interested in purist 133, right? Like like kind of studying it in its pure form and practicing it, SCA Rapier is probably a better choice. The reason is because if you want to start introducing cuts, people are going to start introducing more styles to it. Like for example, when I do SCA cut and thrust, I'm using a lot of Lignitzer. Okay, Lignitzer uses a lot more cuts. He uses a lot more deception. He uses a lot like changing cuts. So he adds an element of fighting that is not found in 133. Now you might say that I mean, my opinion is that it's fighting is fighting. You can't dictate in a real fight. You can't dictate to the other person what style they're going to be fighting you in. Okay, they're going to fight you in whatever style they're going to fight you in. But I think that if you want to study 133 kind of in isolation and practice it in isolation, where there is not a high degree, a high use of cuts, SCA Rapier is a great place to go do that. And then from there, I mean, you don't have to do just one or the other. I mean, you could do SCA Rapier where you're doing where you're doing 133 in kind of more isolation, right? And then you can also do the cut and thrust, where now you're also fencing people that are using a lot more cuts and deception and misdirection, and a whole bunch of other things, and you can develop your fighting style even further over there. Okay, so something for you guys to think about, and I just kind of wanted to put this out there for you guys. SCA Rapier is a really good and cheap place to practice your 133. Okay, because this isn't like an organized fencing school that for profit, where you're paying let's say $100 or $200 a month or whatever they charge. You're paying if you're paying anything at all, you're paying a floor fee of maybe like $5 to help cover the rent for the place, and that's it. And like I said, with SCA Rapier, it's all the same. They're basically they're fighting for control, trying to get the other person's weak on their strong, push aside, come in and thrust safely. So I think that's very compatible with 133. So if you guys like this video, share it, give it a thumbs up. If you're not a member of my channel, subscribe. I'll see you guys next time.